I would like to show you. We talked about we talked about the Cuban export labor problem last week, and this week it's all over the news. All over the news. We have heard from several members of CARICOM about what they plan to do. And we haven't heard from our Prime Minister. We have heard from the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. We have heard from the Prime Minister of Barbados. We're going to play them. And we have heard from the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We haven't heard from our Prime Minister. But we've heard from this lady.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaica's dancing sensation, Minister Johnson Smith, doing the drift. Let's go. Drift from the UNESCO vote. Drift from the UK prison deal. Drift from the Ukraine vote. Drift for the Moroccan fertilizer deal. Drift from the UN no vote. Drift from the Venezuela-Guyana issue. Drift from the Commonwealth election. Drift from Senator Floyd Morris. Drift from Senator A.J. Nicholson. Drift from the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. Drift from working for the Jamaican people. And drift into oblivion.
Yes, there it is. She's going right there. Now, let me pull up these things here. Hold on 1 second. All right, here we go. Oops. All right. Let me pull on a couple of them. So, here's another one. Where is it? Hold on 1 second, folks. Okay, here's another one. This is good. This is good experience for me. When Kevin, and I think Kevin do it purposely. Kevin just leave me alone to just deal with it myself. We don't have that one. All right, fine. Here we go.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. But what matters to us is principles. And I have said over and over that principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Now, we don't have to shout, but we can be resolute. And I therefore look forward to standing with my CARICOM brothers. I wish I could say brothers and sisters, but brothers, to be able to ensure that we explain that what the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person.
Real leader, real leadership, real person. You notice what she said? She said, we don't have Cuban doctors, Cuban medical professionals under the Cuban export program. We don't have them in Barbados. But she said, but I'm willing to stand on the front line for principle. She also said, principle means something when it's inconvenient to stand by it. Think about that. That's the kind of language you want to hear from your leader. Principles mean something when it's inconvenient to stand by it. A lot of people, they'll talk about principles, but when it comes time to stand up for it, they disappear. They disappear. Now, whether you agree with her or not, you have to admit that she has taken a position. And she's out front and center when she did not have to do so, because they don't have any Cuban doctors in Barbados. She said that. And she also said, we pay them the same amount of money as we pay, Bajans. Now, why am I playing this? Big up yourself, Roland. Big up. Why am I playing this? We're going to jump across and connect the dots and things like that. Because the way Kevin and I do it, sometimes it's in sequence, sometimes it's out of sequence. And sometimes when you do it out of sequence, it actually flows better. Take a look at this.
How are you? Thank you, my friend.
Well, you see what they did. They advertised that as the phone call between the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State. And we talked about the phone, it looked bogus and all of that. Because it's not a 2-3 phone, and they would not be discussing geopolitical matters on an open line. But you heard what he said in the end. Thank you, my friend. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, if you haven't heard, if your ambassador did not tell you, let me then be the first to tell you that America does not have permanent friends or allies. America has interests. And you are not an interest for them right now. You are like a millstone around their neck. You're not a friend. So this idea of friending up, that thank you, my friend, if that is the call, because that's how they advertise it, that's the phone call with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. That's the phone call. I can tell you that's not a phone call. Because a phone call from Secretary of State Marco Rubio to the Prime Minister would be something like this. Mr. Prime Minister, you were told several years ago about the relationship with China. And yet, you haven't done anything to curtail that relationship. If anything, the relationship has strengthened, and China has a firm foothold in Jamaica. It would be something along those lines. You need to do something about it. And then the Cuban one as well. It would be, you have 400 plus Cubans in Jamaica. We don't particularly like that, because we believe that there is human trafficking, there is servitude, all kinds of things going on. And again, people, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what's going on. And then you make your decision. That's how that conversation would be. Would be that you've been recalcitrant, you've been wayward. We've spoken to you about this issue before, and you didn't do anything about it. So now it's time for you to suffer some consequences. Now, what the Jamaican government has not done, it hasn't come out with a firm, unambiguous, unadulterated statement. They haven't come out with something that they can say, this is our position. They haven't. You know what they've said? They've said, well, we're going to look into it. We need clarification. They don't need any clarification. I showed it last week. The press release from the State Department. It's very, very clear, people. It says that if you are involved with the Cuban labor export program, i.e., the Cuban medical professionals program, nurses, doctors, and we have more Cubans working in Jamaica, and we have 70 Cubans working in the education system, education ministry. But the things that if you are working with this program, then you are going to suffer consequences. Visas. We're going to take away your visa, people associated with this program, and we're going to take the visas of your immediate relatives. Now, let me show you something. These things, you can't make these things up. Hold on 1 second. Now, we see where the Minister of Health and Wellness is saying there's no evidence of forced Cuban labor in Jamaica. You have to understand something with geopolitics. It's one thing if you're standing up and you're saying, no, you're wrong, and we're not gonna go down that path with you. Marco Rubio did not ask him for evidence. He didn't say, you have evidence of forced Cuban labor. He didn't ask for it. He's saying there's no evidence. Minister Tufton is saying that. They didn't ask him for that. They said, you're going to send home the Cubans, or you're going to suffer some consequences. There's no wiggle room here. There's no arguing. There's no negotiation here. Let me show you something else. Here's another one. They're making contingency plans. They should have been making these plans since 2019 when this issue first surfaced. It may have surfaced before, but as far back as I went, it's 2019. And they haven't done anything regarding that. But I'm trying to, don't think I have it here. Cuban medical threat. There's one here where they're looking, they claim that they're looking for nurses and doctors to come in from elsewhere. And that, my friends, is not going to work. That is not going to work. I want to show you something that's all lies, medical servitude, forced labor designation. All right, while we're looking for that, let me show you something.
Hey, baby. Home a little cottage in the hill, way up in West End Grill. This man said, turn it on. Hey, baby. Jimmy, I miss you. Hey. Oh, my lips wanna kiss you. All you wanna phone. So my surprise, you're right there. Oh, my little cottage in the grill. I wrote this line for you.
No, Kevin, hold on there. I'm gonna go back to StreamYard. Okay, let me move this. We've hold on 1 second. All right, where's that document that Kevin? Right, this? No. This one right here. All right. All right, let me show you something, folks. Okay, here we go. Here it is. See that? Jamaica to look to Philippines, India, Nigeria after U.S. visa rules restrict Cuban doctors. And here he is again, Mr. Little Cottage in the Grill. Here he is. He said it's going to be pose a significant challenge, and there's indication that they'll be looking to Philippines, India, Nigeria, so on and so forth. Now, what does that tell you? What that tells you is that they're going to send home the Cubans. If you're looking to Philippines, India, Nigeria, because you said the U.S. visa rules restrict Cuban doctors, it says that you're bringing doctors and nurses from elsewhere. Why? Because you want to preserve your right to travel or the privilege to travel to the United States. So now, the question is visa or principle? Visa win all the time for these folks. And you know why visa wins all the time for these folks? Some of them have children here studying in the United States. And I'd like to ask Dr. Tufton, and he's not a real doctor, by the way. When I say a real doctor, he's not a medical doctor. He's a marketing, he has a PhD in marketing. I want to ask him, does he have any children studying in the United States now? Does he have any children studying? Does he have children studying in the United States? Does he have a child? Because children, plural. So they might find a way to escape and say, no, we don't have children. We don't have any children. We don't have children studying in the United States. Although it's a foolish argument still that they try to make. But does he have anyone in his immediate family studying in the United States? This is the gentleman whose neck is on the chopping block, you know. He's Minister of Health. At least one of the heads on the chopping block. Because if the Cubans are not sent home, then the US government is going to take action. And they're going to start with the Ministry of Health. Then they're going to move on to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Then they're going to move on to the Prime Minister. Walk like a champion, you know me. It's frightening. Okay. So it would appear as it, and then think about it. Kevin, where the thing there? The video with the hospital. The one with the hospital. Just put it there. Hold on a second, folks. Okay, here it is. Now, I'm going to show you something. When these politicians get sick, when they have surgery to be done, most of them, not all of them, most of them, where do you think they're going to go? Miami. 90 minutes away from Jamaica. They're going to go there to get their medical treatment. The Cubans leave. It is going to be a total collapse. You think any politician is going to go through this, what I'm about to show you? I think that's the Spanish Town Hospital.
Remember to keep that on your face. I'm coming to you, you and you next. Were you on oxygen?
Yeah.
All right, put it on. You next, you. I'm coming to help. Coming to help. Yes, sir.
Now, you think any politician is going to subject themselves to sitting in a hospital like these folks? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And so what they're thinking is that I keep my visa, I can go take a week and go relax at my house in a Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, wherever. Drive my fancy car when nobody don't know about. Have my boat. Hang out with my friends, have a good time, go shopping. Have my children go to school. You think them risk that? Oh, Kevin, want me play? Oh, Kevin, all right, Kevin. Kevin, want me play this again? All right, hold on. Now hear the thing that Kevin. Now, now you know, no knives. Stay with us, people. Yeah, Kevin just slice and dice the video by Mia Motley, and there's a section that he took out of it that he'd like me to play for all of you. But listen, these politicians, they're gonna sell you out. They're gonna sell you out before them give up them visas. They're going to sell you out. They are not going to take a stand. They will not take a stand. Up to now, the Prime Minister has not. In fact, you know what, Kevin? When Kevin finished with this, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, that. Okay. Lick it on there now, Kevin. See it, huh?
Principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it.
Principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Let those words sink in. Sink in. Don't forget, this is the same Jamaican government that destroyed a healthy relationship that Jamaica had with Venezuela. Do not forget. And what happened? The US government ended up buying, even though they had a dispute, big dispute with Venezuela. US government ended up buying oil from Venezuela. And Jamaica is still on the back seat. Don't forget. Don't forget. So now it comes down to what are we going to do? And so far, nothing. But let me put out something about people who have spoken.
Today, I want to follow up on a story that I covered yesterday. So yesterday, I covered a story about the Caribbean leaders, that there was allegedly letters sent around to the Caribbean, to different leaders in the Caribbean, about the Cuban medical program. The Cuban medical program have been around for decades, I think over 50 years, where Cuban nurses and doctors go all over the world to work because, as we know, Cuba have some of the best medical.
Let me get down to where, let me see. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
delivery. On
Just click more. You will see the link to buy me a cup of coffee. Click the link. You can purchase 1 or 2 cups of coffee, and you'll be helping me to fulfill this mission. Thank you.
we rely a lot for our healthcare delivery on certain specialists who over the decades we have obtained from India, from the Philippines, sometimes from Africa, and mainly from Cuba. Out of the blue now we are being called human traffickers because we hire technical people who we pay top dollar equal to local rates, but we are now being accused of taking part in the program where people are being exploited. That's somebody's interpretation. And of course, there are local people here encouraging them to take away our US visas. Today, I just came back from California. And if I never there in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
Okay, so that was the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I said earlier on, there are thousands of Cuban doctors spread across the Caribbean.
I'll find another one. Okay. I don't see the one with the thing that Kevin, my boy there. Let me see all this.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has joined other Caribbean community CARICOM leaders in defending the Cuban Health Brigade after the United States announced the expansion of an existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy that targets forced labor linked to the Cuban Labor Expert Program. CARICOM countries have called for a meeting with Washington.
I was looking for the one with, I'm sure most of you saw it, the one with Mr. Gonzalez from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He made it abundantly clear that he's not. Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is.
And he showed up at a PMP political rally supporting his friend Isaac Buchanan. So Isaac Buchanan was the lawyer for Vybz Kartel, popular superstar dancehall artist Vybz Kartel, and he's now running for a seat in the People's National Party, Jamaica. So Prime Minister of St. Vincent had a surprise visit to that political rally, and he spoke out against Marco Rubio and the Donald Trump administration trying to force Caribbean leaders to push their doctors, the Cuban doctors, out of the Caribbean. And this is what the Prime Minister of St. Vincent had to say.
Secretary of State of the United States of America has issued a statement that countries which are complicit in his words with trafficking in persons and exploiting Cuban professionals, the doctors and engineers who come, that those who are complicit would lose their passport, they lose their visas and their families. Now, I know we're not involved in any exploitation of Cuban workers. And I know that the Cubans are not involved either, the Cuban government. I know the arrangements. And I believe that the Secretary of State is a good and decent man. I would not say anything bad about him. I don't say things, it is not in my nature to say bad things about people unless I have the evidence. And I have no evidence. And he appears to me to be a good man. And if he knows the facts, I'm sure that he will understand that we are not involved in that. But if it is determined that you have to take away my visa and Eloise's visa, I want to say this publicly. It could be reported. I'm not looking for a fight with anybody. But we have to be honest and open. The hemodialysis which we do in St. Vincent at the Modern Medical and Diagnostic Center with these 60 persons. Without the Cubans there, I will not be able to offer that service. So, does anybody expect that I to go because I want to keep a visa, that I would let 60 persons from the poor and working people to die? It will never happen.
Okay, so that was the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in.
So, folks, you have heard from 3 leaders in the Caribbean. You have heard from the leaders in Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados. Jamaica is supposed to be the leader in CARICOM. Jamaica is supposed to have the biggest voice in CARICOM. And yet, we have not heard from the Jamaican government. We haven't heard from the Prime Minister. We have heard from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And what did she offer? She offered a very, very lame excuse. She said, we are, I'm paraphrasing what she said. She said, we're coming up with a plan and CARICOM is going to meet. Let me find that video of her. Hold on one second. And I wasn't planning on playing it, but it's appropriate that I do. Let me see if, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Stay with me, folks. Stay with me. Kevin must have gone eat. Hold on. Hold on one second. Okay, here we go.
All right, so Mahiri, go ahead.
Which minister do you need?
Minister Johnson Smith.
Minister Johnson Smith, can you join me?
When I listen to this, some of you saw it last week. Hold on, let me stop this young man from asking a question. Hold on, Kevin. Let me stop him right there. I want to pay careful attention to the question that's asked. I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. For those of you who saw it last week, I want this to be reinforced. I want this to be seared in your head cap, in your headpiece, in your cranium. I want it to be seared in. I don't want you to forget this moment when she was asked this question. And keep in mind, people, that this issue, we have documentation going back to 2019. And we have an ambassador in the United States who should have been monitoring this. No monitoring was done. None. This question was asked last week. Here we go.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, everyone. Happy Women's Day when it comes.
Morning.
Okay, so my question is Jamaica set to be negatively impacted by recent U.S. policy that's concerning the Cuban labor export program? I know that there was a recent CARICOM meeting regarding the matter. Is there any update in terms of how it's going to affect the region and how it's going to affect Jamaica?
Okay. The statement that was issued by the State Department is, I believe that's the point of reference for your question.
First of all, I'm no disrespect, but take a good look at this minister. She has, it would appear to me that she's had a lot of sleepless nights. If you go back and it could be work related. If you go back and you look at her like just a year or two ago, she's in deep water. She's in an untenable situation, a situation that she cannot manage. And we have example after example of diplomatic errors, diplomatic snafus committed by her and her staff. And so she's under a lot of pressure. She's learning on the job, even though she's been on the job for quite some time now. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, she's the longest serving foreign minister. But she just can't seem to get it right. She just cannot seem to get it right. So apart from her physical appearance, I want you to think, listen, and think about her answer. Because this is a question that she should have anticipated. And yet, when it was asked, no answer. Let me go back. So you listen to the question.
Minister, do you need?
Minister Johnson Smith.
Minister Johnson Smith, can you join me?
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, everyone. Happy Women's Day when it comes.
Morning.
Okay, so my question is Jamaica set to be negatively impacted by recent U.S. policy that's concerning the Cuban labor export program? I know that there was a recent CARICOM meeting regarding the matter. Is there any update in terms of how it's going to affect the region and how it's going to affect Jamaica?
Okay. The statement that was issued by the State Department is, I believe that's the point of reference for your question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Jamaica's had quite a long history of participation in the Cuban Medical Cooperation Program. And in fact, that's replicated throughout the Caribbean. So this statement was received with some concern. We have been reaching out to get more information, to get greater clarity. I don't think I would be incorrect in saying that all of the members of the COFCOR have reached out to their U.S. counterparts or their U.S. contacts at different levels, as I have. And there is, I believe we anticipate some more information to come, greater clarity as to what is anticipated. In the meantime, the Jamaican government is also examining the operation of our system. We have over 400 participants from the Cuban medical program at different levels, doctors, nurses, biomedical engineers, technicians. So their presence here is of importance to our healthcare system. So as soon as we get more information, there is an engagement planned in short order with the CARICOM foreign ministers, the members of the COFCOR. Also, I think, are anticipating that the U.S. embassies across the region will get additional formal information, and at that time, we should be better able to navigate the potential impact and the way forward.
Look on her.
And I think we have a...
She can't answer the question. She can't answer the question, Kevin.
But you see, that lets people understand why it is that Jamaica is looking to Asia and Africa for doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Because that answer cannot be given to this young man's question as it relates to this issue. She has not been able to answer. Minister of Health has not been able to answer. The Prime Minister cannot make a statement. All of these individuals come to the US regularly.
Yep.
I don't have to have seen them. You don't have to have seen them. We know this.
Yeah. Hey, I'm getting text messages from people who have seen them and their family members here.
Okay.
Have homes here. They have second homes here. So,
okay.
No, go ahead.
So, and that explains exactly why it is that they can't make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains why this thing will drag out. And what will end up happening is the same thing that we see happen time and time again when things are dragged out. all it needs to do is be dragged out for 10 days because they're a 9-day wonder.
Right. You know, absolutely correct. When was the last time anybody heard anything about the same-sex couple? You remember the same-sex couple that Jamaica said we're not letting them in? I want to notice, and America said, well, if we don't get them in, guess what? Audrey Marks and the other the CGs, they're going home. And if you notice, you're not, and no journalist followed up on it. Nobody no follow up and say what really happened. Did the US back down? Or did Jamaica capitulate and say, fine, bring the person, but just make it quiet? We know bring the people in. We know you're not more about that. But here's what she said. She said, we need more information. We need clarification from the US. Lady, I don't know. Look, she's supposed to be a bright person, but she's making me lose faith in her ability to think matters through. I'm losing faith in a rapid fire way. And I'll tell you why, Kevin, because when she says that we need, what she said, we need them need more information. Yeah, and because they have to clarify. Here's why you have to clarify nothing. See it right here. So what the US government said. There's no clarification necessary. Today we announced by the way, man, put up the date. See the February 25th. Today, we announced the expansion of an existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy that targets forced labor linked to the Cuban labor export program. This expanded policy applies to current or former Cuban government officials and other individuals, including foreign government officials. You hear me? Liquor Beach and Liquor Cottage and the wait name? Negril. Yeah, you hear? Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith, Prime Minister, one of them are talking and them say, including foreign government officials who are believed to be responsible for. I want to figure the authorization for this contract go through for them people that come are involved in the Cuban labor export program. And remember now, people missed the party, I know, Kevin. It says Cuban labor export program, particularly Cuba's overseas medical missions, meaning that there are other parts to the program. There are other employees who are not in the medical sector, like, for example, those in the educational sector, and we have 70 of them assigned to the Ministry of Education. They are involved too. Them count them. And so people say, oh, it's the doctors and the nurses. No, it's any Cuban who come under the Cuban labor export program. Any Cuban that there was an agreement between the Jamaican government and the Cuban government. Any Cuban. They're subject to that agreement is subject to this policy, and it says the department has already taken steps to impose visa restrictions on several. Let's see what else it says.
Well, the part of the families is right. That's what.
Which part? Well, nothing.
That was where you left from.
Okay. Oh, yeah. This policy also applies to the immediate family of such persons. So if you are a minister in Jamaica, it's not only your visa going to go if the Cubans them stay, if the Cubans them stay, but if you have people studying, immediate family members studying, are living in America, them have a visa, them have. And by the way, a green card is a visa. It's called an immigrant visa. That can go too. Right? So they might think about themselves when they talk about, oh, we're going to explore options about getting people from elsewhere across the globe to come to Jamaica. Well, that's a clear signal that they must say, boy, Cubans and better go home. No, where is that voice that Jamaica used to have in a CARICOM? CARICOM not trust Jamaica. And remember, say CARICOM agreed that that they would support Baroness Patricia Scotland for the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Don't forget that. And Jamaica said, no, after there was a consensus, and Jamaica said, we want Kamina Johnson-Smith to be that person. And it caused a rift. Don't forget, say, when we did the UN, we have vote for the humanitarian aid for Gaza. And remember, say, Jamaica helped craft the thing. Jamaica spoke about it on the floor, and then when it was time to vote, Jamaica's vote was noticeably, I wouldn't even say absent. It was not coming. It wasn't forthcoming, because the gentleman who is the ambassador to the UN, he was sitting there waiting to hear from Kamina Johnson Smith and others, Minister Kamina Johnson Smith and others, and that word did not come. So CARICOM no trust Jamaica. And you see what CARICOM do now? CARICOM come out, you know. Some of the players them come out already and say, hey, listen, we're not giving up we're not, if it means that we have to give up the visa, in order to get, well, if it means that we have to give up our visa by keeping the Cubans, we're not keeping the Cubans. We're not giving up our visas. We want our visas. That's what the Jamaicans actually, that's a message them I transmit. Other people have said, if it means we have to let the Cubans go, we're not giving up our visas because they're staying. They're staying. So, Reggae Girl, you ask a question. What are the repercussions of the return of those Cuban healthcare? It means that Jamaica's healthcare system is going to look
significantly worse than it is now.
Well, let me close this, Kevin, and put this up here now. We can close this?
Yeah, man.
It's going to look worse than this. That's what's going to happen. It's going to look worse than this. I was told that when you go to the hospitals, Kevin, you have a 50% chance of being seen by a Cuban doctor.
I'm coming to you and you next. Were you on oxygen?
A 50% chance
You next.
to be seen by a Cuban doctor.
Coming to help.
No, hold on then. Go bring up something.
But you know what? I wonder if
let me tell you now with the 400 Cuban doctors them there. Let me tell you now with them there. The 400 Cuban doctors. This I got this from a source, the Ministry of Health, right? And so at the moment there are 400 medical professionals from Cuba in Jamaica, mainly nurses, pediatricians, general surgery, internal medicine, ophthalmology, gynecology, hematology, oncology, orthopedics, rheumatology, pediatric surgery, neurology, pathological anatomy, imaging, optometry, medical physics, pharmacology, gastroenterology, radiotherapy, biomedical engineers, and general practitioners. You know what specialties them cover in Jamaica? Them cover all of them specialties there. And we still have, oh wait there. And we still have this. So just think when them gone, what happen. Just think.
Remember to keep that on your face. I'm coming to you and you next. Were you on oxygen?
Yeah.
All right, put it on.
When we're done with that video, we have another video for sure now.
I'm coming to help. Coming to help.
Actually, man have water. Bring him in water. You see that, Kevin? Man have 2 bottles of water right next time. See you next one. Look on these people. Let me stop it there. People, this is not what you think of as a developing country. Remember, Jamaica have a plan, Vision 2030. Said that by 2030, we're supposed to be a developed nation. We're developing now. Now, tell me if this is a developing nation. And remember now, we have 400 Cuban specialists there. And should they leave, Reggae Girl, this situation I'm about to show you is going to get worse. Total collapse.
Oh, God. I don't know wait for bed to go in to go admit and can't get no bed. Me up in hospital. Jesus Christ.
I want this, I want this. Maybe alright. I'll be if me not go home tomorrow. And you have to go home day visit.
Okay, now let me show you something else. Somebody asked the question, where is it? Candy Max, how do the Cuban doctors get paid? Do the islands pay the Cuban government or the doctors are paid straight from the respective governments? All right, here we go. See this? Here are some facts about it. 549, 290 coming for COVID-19. Cumulative, they have over 2,000 since 1976, and that it's active. Here's the agreement. And you see who signed it? Agreement signed at Jamaican's Ministry of Health and Well-being. So, Mr. Little House on the little cottage in the grill, your visa upon the chopping block. Here it is. The technical agreement, cooperation agreement was 1976. It was first signed. Now, you ask about whether or not who paid them. I'm going to show you. Here it is. Okay, but I don't know why that thing always give me a problem. You know. It is right there. It says Cuba's medical collaboration with Jamaica began in 1976. First sentence. First one. Now, who paid them? Come down and you see how who paid them. Look right there, sir. See that? Each worker earns $650 per month, or 37% of the 1,732 that Jamaica pays Cuba. Jamaica pays Cuba. Let me remove that. So there it is. Jamaica pays Cuba. It's not free. It's not free.
So can we define exploitation? Because that's the argument that is used by Rubio and the administration.
Right.
That it is exploitation of Cuban workers. Yes?
Right.
So if they're being exploited, is it that they're underpaid or not paid? And if they're underpaid, if they were practicing in their country, are they getting less when they practice in Jamaica or anywhere else in the Caribbean based on this agreement?
Well,
based on this agreement, they're getting the same that they would get in Cuba.
I don't know. They get 37% of what the Jamaican government pays. According to this, they're getting 37% of what the Jamaican government pays the Cuban government per worker. So they're getting 37% of that. Now, the question is, how do they get paid? The Jamaican government pays the Cuban government, and then the Cuban government will pay. They do not get paid directly from the Jamaican government. It's paid from Jamaican government to the Cuban government. And I've been told that if you want to see what the Cuban doctors are doing to maintain a certain lifestyle, to live in Jamaica, go to some of the hotels on the North Coast, because they're there moonlighting as
bartenders. These doctors.
They're moonlighting, doing all kinds of jobs, because this is what I've been told. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of it, because people could argue that, well, that's not exploitation, because at the end of the day, think about it, the Cuban government sent these people to school for free. So it's like they invested in them, and so now there's a return on the investment. And at the same time, they're providing valuable humanitarian services. I don't want to get into that argument. My argument is simply this. What is Jamaica's stance on this policy from the US? That's my only query. What is Jamaica's stance?
Watch my thought pattern now as it relates to this, but it goes beyond this. We collectively, in the Caribbean have had talk of a Caribbean community for a long time. Correct?
Correct.
We have gravitated more so to the United States for various things. Many of us, like myself, have even migrated to the United States. Now, if we were to actually see this as a moment to collectively come together and now actively move towards this Caribbean community, we would have a Caribbean Court of Appeals. We would have a Caribbean market that we trade amongst each other. We would have a Caribbean currency throughout the Caribbean, not just the Eastern Caribbean, which last time I checked, it was doing very well against the United States dollar. Please correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. We would have, at this point, with all of those things in place, we already have the University of the West Indies, which serves the Caribbean and serves them well. So if anybody can think of Oakwood in 1927, many people know it as Black Wall Street. This is what the Caribbean would become. And the kind of position that Jamaica had sat in for a long time, as the Caribbean looks to Jamaica as one of the leaders of the Caribbean, we'd be in good stead. Am I off with my thought pattern? I don't know. Somebody can help me. I'm not in politics, so maybe it's just a utopian dream. But this is like almost a gift. I don't know. So let's go ahead. We can do it. Make we cut ties then. Because if our doctors are not coming from the United States, the doctors that are helping in Jamaica are not coming from the United States. We're not getting the funding from the United States to make our hospitals better. And if we're getting it, then we're not using it. So why we're not building at home? It's the same thing that making our farmers suffer in Jamaica when we can get goods from our farms in Jamaica. We're just so foreign-minded. We're gone foreign.
No,
It's away from somebody living in the foreign. But
so Candy Max was asking, that's US dollars, Candy Max, the numbers I just gave. And D. Marie is asking, has the contract been adjusted to 76? Yes. And let me go back to the document and show you. Hold on. Okay, here it is. There it is. That's US dollars. It's so what they're saying here is that, and I think this is coming from the Cuban side. Yeah, this is coming from. Oh, somebody asked if the Cuban doctors are complaining. Yes, quite a few of them complained, and quite a few of them they sought refuge and they were granted asylum. And a few of them also sued. But here's what it's saying. It's saying they get $650 per month. That's what the Cuban government is giving them. But the Cuban government collects $1,732 from the Jamaican government. So they get less than half. They get less than half. And you had asked about
37%.
Yeah, 37%. Yeah, you were asking about here it is, the agreement. If you look right at the right here, above additional information, you see the technical cooperation agreement. That's the first one, was in 1976. And if you look at the top of that document, it said most recent agreement. So it has been adjusted. Oops. Hold on.
You just went up a little bit too far. That's all.
See there? Yeah, and it's for 5 years. So it started. So this new one that they're working on, at the time, it was 2015, and it was for 5 years, 2020. So they have a new one now. But the first one was in 1976.
What happened? What happened come 2020? We had COVID-19.
And then they sent, look right here. Look what they said about COVID right here. Hold on.
But we hear Mayor Motley talk about COVID, COVID-19.
290, they had 290 for COVID-19. They sent 290. So, this people, and there's so much more, there's so many angles that we can look at this. But I just want you to understand, my people, that our government is a wishy-washy government. They're straddling the fence. Have to make a decision. Make a decision. I'm not telling them that they should jump to the left or jump to the right. I'm saying you cannot stand on the fence. You have to make a decision for the people of Jamaica. Now, here's what it means. It means that if they said we're sending home the Cubans, and we send home the Cubans, so we keep our visas, the system is going to collapse. The system is going, because you have 400 medical professionals leaving, and we cannot replace them. At least not that fast. We can't replace them. And somebody was asking, it means that it's the new agreement, or the ones who are there right now, their grandfathered in? No. The ones who are there are not grandfathered in. But the US government is saying, you are involved in human trafficking and servitude because these doctors are not getting paid what they should pay. You're actually propping up the Cuban government, and the Cuban government is making millions per year off of the money that you're giving them that they're not giving to these doctors. Now, as I said before, there's an argument that, wait a minute, the Cuban state, it paid for these people's education. It was an investment. And they're saying, so we're collecting on our investment, plus we're doing a humanitarian service to mankind. People have made that argument. I don't get involved in the political argument at all. All I'm questioning is, where does the Jamaican government stand on this issue? Where? We haven't heard from Jamaica, and Jamaica is supposed to be a leader in CARICOM. We run up a mountain. And if you remember, when Venezuela and Guyana had that land dispute because of oil, where was Jamaica? Jamaica wasn't there. You know what the Honorable Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith said? That's an Eastern Caribbean thing, and we're focused on Haiti. Ask her now.
Did nothing about Haiti.
Ask her. So people, it's tough already to see a doctor in Jamaica. And so it's up to the Jamaican government now to decide whether they want their people to live like this, or they want their people to live like this.
Hey, baby. Home a little catching in the hill. Way up in West End Grill. This man said,
but I have a strong suspicion, people, that if we said we want the latter, we want to be on the beach and having fun and healthy, I suspect that privately, this is what
that won't be happening. That will not happen. That will never happen.
That will never happen. We will not be healthy, wealthy, living in a country of prosperity and hanging out on the beach. First of all, we don't even have access to the beach. So that will never happen. Go ahead, Kevin.
But so again, all kind of things go on in my head sometimes. If we do away with the Cuban doctors, and again, we established that is just or elite and politicians that really would benefit, because a lot of Jamaicans, the average Jamaican, first of all, can't afford the visa. And if they do get the visa, no struggle to get the airfare to go to foreign. So we understand that. But there's also other things that are going on with this administration. Are they saying to Jamaica, yo, we want China out, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here we see another move to squeeze the testes a little tighter.
Yes.
Because where else do they have us? In Jamaica. If not there.
No, you're right. You're right. And again, people, this goes to your diplomatic acumen. It goes to how you're able to maneuver the minefield of diplomacy, because it's a minefield. You have to know what you do. You have to know what you're doing. How do you gain respect from your counterparts? Or as OT said, weakness. Them see as weak and, you know, all fluff, all talk, but nothing. Here's another thing. I suspect that the Cubans will be told to leave, because you know why? I believe that the US government has a lot of dirt on our politicians. The head cook and buckle washer. All of the people who make decisions. I believe that there is a lot of dirt. And all they have to do is just call a meeting with those people and say, hey, here's a video I want you to look at this. Or here's a wire transfer. I want you to look at this wire transfer. Because right now you're facing prosecution in the United States. And I think once that they do that, you what they're going to do is say, let us do it slowly, and we don't want any fanfare. We don't want the public to know about it, but we will quietly let them go. I suspect that that is what is going to happen. If Jamaica ever come out and say, I bet my last dollar, if Jamaica ever come out and say, we not letting no Cubans, if they ever stand up like, if them stand up like this lady, hold on then. You move her, Kevin.
Which one?
Two of them, this one, she this? Yeah.
It only means something when it is inconvenient to stand by it.
Yes, indeed. Well, on, let me find the other one. Wait there. Let me find the other one. Okay. If wait there, Kevin, it disappeared from me.
You never
no, Sita. If our prime minister think him bad, if him think if a film clothes him away and no borrow clothes, if him have the gumption, if him have the courage, if him have the dedication to the Jamaican people, him have love for the Jamaican people, if all of the things when him come out and talk about him a lead and him all that, if him think him bad, you know, like my Virgin Tigo that say, I not see him nasty, or I can't see him, or I not see nasty. We are gonna find out. Make him come out. No, make him come out and talk like this lady here. Make him come out and talk like this lady. Hold on.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. But what matters to us is principles. And I have said over and over that principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Now, we don't have to shout, but we can be resolute. And I therefore look forward to standing with my CARICOM brothers. I wish I could say brothers and sisters, but brothers, to be able to ensure that we explain that what the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person. Only means something when it is inconvenient to stand by it.
Indeed. Here's one way them can't get around the problem. Here's one way to get around it. You get around it if you pay the doctors directly, because then you're not paying it to the Cuban government. But the problem is the agreement says you must pay the Cuban government. So you'd have to renegotiate and say, listen, we are going to, the $1,000 whatever dollars we pay to the government of Cuba, we are going to pay it directly to the doctors who are here providing the service. You will avoid the problem if you do that. I know Jamaicans did it for come on, but I just want to show you something. Marco Rubio is no stranger to this, people. As we put up last week, Marco Rubio has been fighting this issue for a very, very long time. And we know his politics, right? Whether you agree or you disagree, he's a known entity. And we should not forget that he and this gentleman now, who's soon to be a jailbird, Mr. Bob Menendez out of New Jersey, the one who them catch with collect money and do all kind of stuff. They put a bill before Congress. Here's the bill right here. You can go look it up. Here it is. Here's the bill that they put up there having to do. Look at what it says. See it right there, so. To respond to international trafficking of Cuban medical professionals by the government of Cuba and for other purposes. This was 2020. I think this was 2020 they did this. So this is not something that just happened. This is something that's been in the works for quite some time. So how is it that our ambassador couldn't convey this to our people so that when they renegotiated, they could have said, listen, you know what? To avoid this, we'll pay the Cuban doctors directly. Because remember, this agreement was renegotiated back in 2020, I believe. Why is it that they didn't do that? Because you know what happened? We're too busy. I got the hoity-toity function them, and we're too busy. I try networking. We're too busy. I do all of them like a fool thing instead of buckling down and working for the benefit of the people. If I were the ambassador, I would be on the hill every day or have somebody on the hill every day. And every bill that had something to do with the Caribbean, I would make it my business to know about it. And particularly if it would affect Jamaica. Me have to know, because then when I know, I have to brief my minister and say, Minister, this is coming down the pike, so you need to tell the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. That is what you're supposed to do. But the minister got caught out by that young man who asked the question. She got caught out and looked foolish and looked like she didn't have no sense of what was going on.